Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of art to help you attract more customers, increase profits, to ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and this week's episode, it's not as much about the business side of it, although that's what we usually talk about. It's more about the social anxiety that all artists have. I don't want to say all artists, but a lot of us have. And I think it just kind of goes hand in hand. And the way I think about this is we are creatures that we get a lot of energy from creating, usually in silence. An artist career can be very lonely. And however, I think that we're made for it. I know that I get a lot of energy, and I'm so excited to get out of the studio after filling my cup or just for staring at a wall and painting it and meticulously getting all those details and just like doing the thing. And then I'm ready to socialize. But I, for one, am not somebody who can be social all day long. It really drains me really fast. And my husband reminds me of this because he is the most social person on earth, I feel like. But even back in our roommate days, my husband and I used to be just friends and roommates. We just happened to fall into that. And then I accidentally got drunk and kissed him. But back in the day, we used to do a lot of after parties at our house, like a lot of house parties. It was actually his house. I was just renting a room there. And I would be so excited. We'd invite people. And then after about an hour, I'd just go to bed because I was extremely just socially overdone. And I didn't actually want to hang out with people for very long, but it sounded like a good idea. And which is maybe a lot more social than maybe what we think of the stereotypical artist as, who probably wouldn't even be going out. But mind you, I was young, in my mid-20s probably at this time. But just things like that. That's kind of a weird example to lead with. I wasn't planning on doing that. It just happened. I am definitely not the loudest person in the room. And it more often than not, especially in new situations where I don't know people, I'm more of the quieter person in the room. I wouldn't say I'm the most socially awkward, although it just depends on the room. But I'm definitely not the most outgoing. That's for sure. So my whole life, I feel like I have been battling shyness or just social anxiety. I know growing up, my brother was the younger of us two, and I would tell him, it might be just being the younger kid, some might argue, but I would have him go ask for things, hey, can you go ask them if we can get that over there? And he would go do it for me. So he was my voice. He was just braver than I was. And you could also maybe delegate that to just being a boy. Some boys in general are just more loud than girls or whatever. But I grew up being very shy. That's the point that I want to get across. And I've come really far, but I have a tendency to just sink back into it and observe rather than chat or put myself out there. It usually takes a little bit of a pep talk, or it just doesn't come natural. And I think people, especially artists listening to this, you might resonate with that to some degree. If you're somebody who is really outgoing, you probably didn't even click on this episode, and it's probably going to be totally not related to you. But it's so funny because I got a review on my Mural Money book. By the way, you can go to muralmoney.com and get the Audible for only $17. It's a $15 15-hour audio that explains how I start and built my entire mural career. Anyway, I struggled a lot, especially in the beginning, with putting myself out there with my art. And partially because I didn't believe that I could make a living with it. And then when I started to, it was still just very uncomfortable to pitch myself. I don't like talking about my art, even though I know that it's a really interesting subject for a lot of people. It just feels, especially at the point I'm at now, it almost feels bragging. And I hate to do that. I don't know why. I'm sure I could get into the psychology behind it, but I'm just not a fan of it. And all the time when we're out, my husband will be like, oh, she's an artist. Like she paints for this company and that. And I'm like, oh, it just feels so cringy. Stop it. Stop bragging on me. And they're like, they're so into it. They love it. And I'm like, I just, I'm like, don't put the spotlight on me. Like, I'm just not a fan of it. But anyway, I wrote my book and then I got a review of an artist being like, yeah, this is a good book of practical tips on how to build a mural career, but this artist was really outgoing. So she had that going for her. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, I can understand how I maybe come across like that. But in real life, that is not real at all. So much so is at the recent mural meetup, we had one in Mexico. And I was like, how am I different in real life than on the podcast or in the videos that you watch in the academy? And several were like, you're a lot like sweeter, shyer, quieter. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know for sure. Well, here I'm like, there's nobody. I'm literally sitting in my house. There's my living room right over there. Like nobody's here at all. Like I don't have to compete for time talking. I don't know. I don't have to, there's no eyeballs on me right now. So it's very easy for me to be really comfortable and say whatever. I can't even imagine people listening to this really. Cause I'm like, why would you do that? So I just talk like I'm talking now, but get me into a room full of people. It's just different. And I want to make this episode and really just run home that I am not a super outgoing person. I'm kind of in the middle of like introvert, extrovert, more towards the introvert. But I want to make this because I feel like my whole life I have had to just muster up the courage to get used to speaking up for myself and showing my art online and appearing on video and all the things that were very uncomfortable at first. Even podcasting, extremely uncomfortable for me. But I did it because I'm super ambitious and I really wanted it. And so I want to just bring that subject to light and also talk about ways to be yourself or just show up more authentically or just put out video, show up on video, because that's one area that I feel like I've gotten down pretty well. Like I said, put me in a room full of people or on a stage. I'm not super comfortable with that. But for some reason, I can show up on video and post anything online and not really second guess it. So I'm going to be diving into a little bit of that, but also just to remind you that we're artists and artists are kind of weird and people kind of expect that. And sometimes when I come across people and they're like, they have like a little side-eye to me, I'm like, I'm an artist. I'm supposed to be different. Like they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, I'll even use that as an excuse to remind them like, oh, no. Like, yeah, I'm a little social awkward, but like, I'm an artist. Like, aren't the best artists like that? Like and they're like, oh, okay. It's just like, it's a fun relatability and it just makes it, I don't know, it's a good excuse, I guess you could say. I remember about 5 years ago maybe like 7. So in about 2018, 2019, I remember thinking with the Bob Ross painting videos in mind, I was like, I just feel like video is going to be the next thing. I was posting photos on Instagram, learning how to gain a following on Instagram and Facebook and things. And I remember just being like, okay, video is going to be the next big thing, a wave. I thought YouTube was going to take over or something. I really wasn't sure. And then I uncovered TikTok. But before TikTok, so a while ago, I forced myself to film a how to paint butterfly wings video. And I don't know if I can find it. I don't want to, but it's just this very cringy, oh gosh, video about how to exactly do that, how to paint butterfly wings. And I didn't do it step by step from beginning to end necessarily. I did a lot of time lapse in there. I did an introduction. I was like, hi, my name is Andrea, and I am painting these butterflies for the zoo. And this is the process and what I'm going to do. And this is why I'm doing it. And it was a minute-long intro. And then it was about 2 minutes of painting. Like, first, I would literally look at the camera and be like, first, you paint the background black. And then I would have a time lapse of painting the background black. And then I would go face to camera with a brush. Then you start to lay the yellow. And then I'd have a time lapse of laying yellow. And then you add the highlights. And then I do a time lapse of doing the highlights. I had my cat in there for a couple cameos. And like, so before everybody lost all of their attention spans with reels and everything, that's the video that I made. And I sent it to a couple of my friends, a couple different versions of it. How I'm like, one version I'm explaining, and then the other version is purely time lapse. And then this version is, I was like, okay, before I look so stupid and post this online, like, what do you guys think of this? And then they gave me some feedback. And I remember pressing upload days later, mind you. It took me probably 3 days to make this video, because the first day I couldn't do it because I didn't look right. So I was like, oh no, I'm going to film tomorrow. And today I'm just going to do the prep. So the next day I like got all made, and then I did it. And then it took me a whole day to edit it, and then a whole day to press send. And I just think about it back then, like that's where I started. So if you are having a hard time videoing yourself on your stories or for an Instagram reel, and you're doing faceless videos and you're like, absolutely not, like I don't look the best today, I'm painting in this shirt that has paint on it and whatever, and my hair is back and I barely put on makeup, like same. And so how I got over that in the beginning was I just put a little bit of effort in, and that helped me show up and at least get started. And then the more that I started videoing myself, the less makeup I felt the need to wear or get myself perfect. Like, this is 3-day-old hair. Don't care. Doesn't matter. It doesn't look like it, does it? It's not that bad, but it's not the best. But it's like, it doesn't matter, because the content is the thing that you care about. Especially when I started to do these videos. So I'm videoing this podcast on YouTube and Spotify. I'm so glad that before I did this, I did those silly how to paint videos and Instagram reels and showed up on my story, because I would have not been able to do that before doing, or this, that, not been able to do this before I did that. So it's a step-by-step thing. So biggest thing is just make yourself appear however you think you should appear. One tip, if you use the Snapchat video and you video yourself with the Snapchat app, and then you save it from there, for some reason, whatever they do to that app, it adds like a slight blur feature, like without any filters or anything. I don't use all that. And it's fine if you do, but I'm just not into it. But if you use the Snapchat video, it just makes you look better than when you use the normal iPhone video. Tip, whatever. Do what you need to do in order to look yourself in the face on your own screen and record something, because nowadays, just because you don't feel comfortable on camera or you don't like to do it is not a good excuse if you actually want to make really good money with art. You can, but if you're currently not, this is a really good way that I've found to get myself started in the beginning. It's just simply showing up on my story, sharing a little bit about what I'm doing, something showing up in the video, so it's not just your hand doing stuff. Like, I get way more views when I am in the video and people can see the artist versus it's just the art. And you don't need to be looking all just completely perfect. And I'm going to share this, I don't know, I'm going to say tip or whatnot, but I'm tempted not to share it just because I don't want any kind of backlash of like trying to put out this something about how you need to look a certain way in order to show up online or have confidence. You need to look perfect or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to get across. But before I started doing stories, there was Snapchat. Gosh, there's so freaking many. But I would snap my friends sometimes. And I noticed, so I had braces when I was younger, and my teeth were all kind of crazy, right? And having crazy teeth, like it just like, for me, it made, especially as a kid, it's like, oh, you just kind of wanted to hide your mouth or whatever. And so I was really lucky and thankful that my mom put braces on me. And that like really helps my self-confidence as a kid. Straightening my teeth up, like huge, like made my smile just, anybody who has braces, like, but never forget the ugly duckling phase. So when I was in my young 20s, say like my teeth started to move back. And so I had to fix my top ones and get a permanent retainer. And then my bottom ones started to move back. Like after years of, wearing a non-permanent retainer at night and like all the thing. Anyway, it just started to move. And so I had one tooth at the bottom that just like kept slowly over time, just sticking out more and more. And so it would go like into my mouth. And it would just kind of look weird. And I was like, it doesn't really matter, whatever. But like I would see it whenever I would put camera to face and I would message my friends or send videos on Snapchat. Yes. Or put stuff on my story or whatever. I'm like, I can see that, whatever. And then finally I just asked a friend, I was like, do you notice that? And they're like, I notice it all the time. I was like, really? In my head, like people don't really notice it. It's a thing. They're like, no, yeah, we can notice it. Like, but it's completely fine. Like, it's like, you don't really need to get it fixed. It's like, be unique, whatever. But it just bothered me. And especially when I did the videos, and finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna look into this. So I went back to my orthodontist and I was like, I don't want to put braces on again, but what can we do? They're like, oh no, it's an easy fix. And I actually traded to do window paintings for them putting in I wore a temporary retainer there was a metal one that I had to do. And I just had to wear it for about 6 months and it slowly moved my tooth back. It was way out there. And then I put a permanent retainer in then. So I was about 27 when that happened. And man, having metal in my mouth again as a 27-year-old, like I already looked young. Was starting my business and wanting people taking me seriously, and I don't look too young. And then I had that in my mouth. Like people thought I was just young again, and I just didn't like it. And it just took me right back to high school. I was like, oh, dang it, that sucks. So at 6 months, they were like, okay, well, we need to keep going. I was like, nope, I'm done. It's pretty straight. It's good to go. Let's put the permanent retainer in. They're like, oh, okay, we're like 95% there. I was like, good enough, done. So now like I have 95% straight teeth. Don't care. It's fine. But I was just so done with wearing that metal retainer. But it fixed that insecurity that I had. And so when I started to show up on video, like reverse video on stories and whatnot and Instagram, and just, it wasn't there. It wasn't something that I always looked at. And it gave me more confidence. I'm totally down for making small changes like that if it's something that really bothers, because without trading painting windows for that permanent retainer, it costs about $500. And to me, something like that, 6 months of your life and $500 in order to show up more confidently and take strides in your business to ultimately make way more money, that is completely worth that. I know that, some people, you probably have to do the whole braces thing, and it takes a couple years. Like that's up to you. But like, to me, a couple years of your life doing something like braces, or just watching my weight, eating healthy, things like that, all of that makes me show up way more confident in life in general, but my business. And so I feel way more confident, and I don't feel like I need to hide myself. I don't feel like I need to hide behind my art. And just to say again, you don't have to be a fucking supermodel or whatever, or just picture perfect. And I am not for using the filters to make everything look perfect and fake. That's not, but that is also part of Instagram and Facebook, they do that. They add those filters so that people will show up on their platform and feel like they look a little bit better. And it's just, I feel like the reason people aren't showing up for their business. So the reason you're hiding behind your art is there is something there, just to be completely real, that you don't like. Whether it's the sound of your voice, or you don't look very good that day, or you've gained 20 pounds, or whatever it is, there's something there that I think is a pretty easy fix. Whether it's the sound, like everybody hates the sound of your voice. So just like practice makes perfect. Get the fuck over that. Sorry. But find out what that fix is for you, because I fixed mine and I feel a lot better about it and I'm making a lot more money with it. And so that's why I tell you, like, and if there's nothing you can do, you're like, you have so many excuses as to why you can't change whatever, like, then it's just time to figure out how to love yourself a little bit more. Because that's what a lot of social anxiety is. Like we're hiding behind something. There's something we don't like. There's something we feel like is not worthy of speaking up. And I have my own things in this too. Like there's something in me that I don't feel like is good enough to speak on stage, or something there. So I'm working this out too. I'm not sure quite what it is that it's holding me back, but I'll figure it out. Maybe it's just practice. Maybe it's just practice. Maybe that's yours. Maybe you're like, I kind of like the way I look and I don't mind the sound of my voice. And like, maybe it's just practice. And I hate to give that because there's no shortcut in that. But I think the way to get over that is just film yourself every day at the start of your day, because we all know 100%, without a doubt, the best story that we're all going to click on, if we see that little thing at the top that gives us a little glimpse of somebody's story, if they are face to camera talking about their art or whatever, start of your day, that's going to make people click. And if you have the attention of a lot of people, you'll have their sale whenever they're ready to buy, or it's a numbers game and it's all about attention. You can send 100 emails for outreach, which is uncomfortable too, by the way. I didn't like that at first either. But again, just putting myself out there, and then practice made perfect. Now I'm like, okay, now it's just a game. Now it's fun. But I was, in the beginning of outreach, I would like go over my outreach email over and over and over. Like, I don't want to seem stupid. And oh my gosh, like that. And I keep getting better and better. And to where I look back at the original ones, I'm like, oh yeah, that was terrible. But it doesn't matter, because I've done it so much and I practiced so much, and it just, I don't have anxiety over that anymore. But it's, in the beginning I started to. So one really interesting thing. So my husband is like the most social person. And when we first started dating, I was like, do you actually think you're God's gift to the world? Or is this just an act? And I for sure thought it was just like something he was acting and playing, but no, like, he does not give two shits about anything. He does not overthink. Like, all these times we're like, we'll have a conversation, we'll be like, oh my gosh, she said this, like, or I said this, and do you think she got upset about it? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, he doesn't overthink. And it might be like a woman thing, not to put us in a hole, but he doesn't overthink. He doesn't care in general about what he looks like. Like, he'll do his hair and like, but like, okay, it's done. He doesn't care he doesn't overthink about it. He just does it. And I really got into this with him. I'm like, okay, have you always been this way? Did you? He was like, no, I practiced at this. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I practiced at this whenever I was in high school, because that's the time to do it, right? Like, every high school student looks stupid. He's like, I would just go and like make a joke in a crowd and see how it would land. And sometimes it wouldn't. And sometimes it would. And I would take what I thought worked well for that, and I would put it onto the next group. And then I would add something onto it. And then I would be the one, trying to talk to my parents. And like, he was the person who always practiced selling, which makes sense that now he is a salesman. He doesn't care to cold call someone. He doesn't care to look stupid and ask for clarification, or he doesn't care when his employees mess up. He'll be like, he takes the blame for it all. He doesn't care. He doesn't care how it looks. Like, if something goes, that's another part I've realized with being a business owner and having employees. Like, if something goes wrong in the business and he has two of his secretaries who are arguing, he will take the fall. He's like, sorry, I did not tell you, did not give you clarification enough. I did not give you, and that's why you guys are, he's like, it's my fault. And then they like have a common person to blame something on instead of blaming each other. And then he gets out of it and he doesn't care. He doesn't care. I'm like, so I feel like it helps me being in proximity of somebody like that and helping me grow as an artist or a person in order to grow my art business. And so second tip is, if you have a friend who is really outgoing, have a real talk with them. Ask them questions like, hey, so this happened and I was thinking it went like this. Like, do you, what is your mental process like whenever you're doing this and that? Or if somebody's really good at sales, like really dissect and ask those questions. Like, you don't have this awkwardness about you. Why? And I'm going to bet a lot of it is practice. Practice selling the thing, knowledge behind the thing you're selling. It's just putting yourself out there. And I think this is a really important topic because I find myself with being an art business coach, I can tell people all the things to do, but more often than not, I am talking them into being confident. I'm talking them into just going for it. And I have several, especially women, who come up to me and they're like, you just go for it. You just do it. You have an idea and you go ask people, like the Roger the Raccoon thing. You don't know what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. But I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm practiced in this. And I got really lucky when I was younger. As a kid, I was extremely shy. Like, we would go when I was young and I was just a kid, like from age, I don't know, 3 on to teenage years. I remember we would go over to friends' houses and play with other kids, but I would play for a little bit and then I would just go back and sit by my mom. Like, my brother would go play with the other kids. They'd be playing and I'd want to, but I'd just, no. That would be way too much for me. I was that socially awkward as a little child. I think part of it is just I was naturally like that. A little bit of it is my mom just stayed home with me and we didn't really leave. I wasn't socialized as a little kid until kindergarten, which rocked my world, by the way. Some of my classmates still love to tell me that I cried on the first day of school for like kindergarten, first grade, like all day. Because I was like, no, I'm here with all these people. Like, I don't know why I was crying. I think I just miss my mom. So I take that into my parenting now. I'm like, no, you will be without you. You'll be fine. Which my son is totally fine. He's nothing like me as a kid. But I feel like I'm very practiced in it. And sports are something that helped me when I was younger. I remember my first day playing basketball. I was terrible at it. Terrible. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I did not score a goal, or a basket or anything. And I cried after. My mom made me do it. And then she made me go out for the team. And it was so bad. And then my mom worked with me and she told me, she's like, you're going to go out there and shoot baskets for an hour every day. You're going to go dribble on that gravel. And I was like, okay, like, what else do I have to do? There was no cell phones back then. And so I did that and we came back. And then the second year I played basketball, I was like one of the best ones on the team. And I was like, wait a second, this is different. And it was just practice. And I think from that moment, I realized, I was like, oh, if I just spend a lot of hours on this thing, I'll get really good at it. Even though these other people, like, maybe they've just spent more hours than me. Maybe I didn't really know, but I just knew that if I practice at something, then I would get good at it and then I would get confident at it. And then sports really helped me get out of my bubble and just realize that everything was practice and that I then could also practice my social skills and be able to talk to people more often and not be so scared. And oh my gosh, college was just insane. I remember I was like, yeah, I'm going to get out of this small town and go to college. And then as my first night in college in the dorm by myself, I cried. I was like, absolutely not. This is insane. It's like my roots came back and it was like, oh, no, fearful, new situation, not about it. Not. And then I had to go from there and find confidence. But I think I kind of blossomed around when I was about 20 years old. And I started doing promotional modeling, which is, I don't know, you get anywhere from like you wear a bikini and stand by a car, or you wear a polo shirt and talk about this insurance promo. Like there's so many in betweens, but I was like a pretty spokesperson for this thing, even though like I wasn't the prettiest girl there, but I was like, okay, if I just get really good at this. And so I practiced. And so for a job for several years, I ended up starting my own agency about it. And for a job, we would talk about whatever product or service. We were there at some kind of trade show. That was my job, is to get people's attention high and let them know about it, and just be like a face and a voice for the brand. And doing that for several years, granted, I was kind of like wearing a costume, wearing a hat. And it wasn't like, didn't feel like me, it's like whenever girls put on hats, like you get like a different personality, or you just, whenever you put on a Halloween costume, it's like a different version of you. Like granted, I felt like I kind of had that, and that helps me get out even more out of my really shy, unsocial bubble. And then that was the propelling for me. And then I started a business around it. And that was the start of, okay, I can do hard things and I can make a business out of it, and I can work for myself. And if I just talk to enough people and I meet enough people, and then through the promos and just getting used to taking photos, because we would do photo shoots and all the things, that's the thing that really too helped me show up on video and photo later on. So it was just this long line of practice and I'm sure you have a similar thing of help. I mean, if you were a shy artist, which a lot of us are, but a similar timeline of like how you can see how you've progressed. But lately I've realized I've kind of stopped progressing. Granted, I've had some really great milestones of like getting used to this podcast and live video, being able to teach, and like all of those things were extremely hard for me. But the last couple years, I haven't really, mostly from getting pregnant and having my son and all the things like. And so lately I am trying to put myself out of my bubble and advance even more and just tackle these social anxiety things. So I made a list of things that I've been doing lately. Most recently, we went to Turks and Caicos for our 5th year wedding anniversary. And they had these trapeze things set up to where it was really high up, and you go through a class and you climb up there and you get on this bar and you swing and then you drop. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, I'm really freaking scared of heights. I've been bungee jumping once and only once, skydiving once and only once years ago. That's done. I'm a one and done. Checked off the bucket list, done. And so I went to go do this trapeze thing, and I just realized, like, whoa, it's been a while since I put myself out of my comfort zone like this. Here we go. So I did it trembling, did not like it. They were like, oh, you're supposed to like put your legs up. And I was like, no, I'm up here, I'm swinging, I'm going to drop. Like it went fine, uninjured. But I was like, okay, nope, I'm done. That's it. I don't want to do it anymore. It was like a one and done for the day. My husband did it multiple times. Of course. But it reminded me of the social anxiety that I would get doing video for the first time. I used to break out in hives on video. So I had to, and I still do that with public speaking nowadays, even today. Like I will wear, if I'm public speaking, you'll see me wear like usually a turtleneck of some type, because I just break out in hives, and it's from my heart rate. It's what happens. But I don't do that anymore on live video, and I used to, and I am sure 100% I was like broken out in hives doing the trapeze thing. Lately, also, I went to a girls' Valentine's night. So what's that? Galentine's night. I showed up. I only knew one person, and it just like thrusted me back into this like, oh yeah, I forgot I have social anxiety. And it was fine, and I made myself talk to people, but it was just like it's just tough. But I'm on this thing where I am meeting new people, and I feel like I'm just making myself have social anxiety all over again, and it makes me really rethink. I'm like, do I really need a bunch of friends? Maybe not. I don't know. But I'm doing it still. I joined this I don't know, joined. It's not really a formal group, but this like moms group in order to get to know a little bit more moms and like show up to their thing. And I went to this meeting where we just had wine, and I was like super nervous for it and everything. And we went and it was great. And I was so glad I was done. But it's like, this just, I'm doing little things like this recently. And I think it all just, I mention this because it all just comes together. And because the brave that we are in our regular life, the braver we are in our business. It's all connected. The more social skills you have or communication skills that you have in your normal life, you carry that into your business life. And the more you learn within your business, you carry it into your normal life. It's all intertwined together. Recently, I'll tell you this one last story, and then I think that's about it. But I went and did a DMT ceremony. Maybe, I don't know if I should be talking about this on here, but I might do a more in-depth video about it later. But it was something that I've always wanted to try. It's like a healing ceremony. And you basically take this stuff and it like heals you from within, breaking it down. It's legal. But it's very much a like eyebrows raised kind of a thing. And I've always been somebody that I want to try everything. And whether it's skydiving or this and that in college or what, like I've tried everything. And so when it came to doing something like this, I was like, oh, I haven't like tried something new like this in a long time. Because people are talking about how like, so basically you take this DMT stuff and you lean back and you're just supposed to like relax while it like heals you. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Like, and some people say it's really intense and that they cry, and some people laugh, and some people yell hysterically. And I'm like, so we're in this like healing circle ceremony. And so some guy told me about this years and years ago, like when I was dating, and he was like, you can try it with me. I went to Peru and did this DMT ceremony. He's like, but I have some if you want to try it with me. And I was like, no, I don't trust you, but I'm going to keep this on my radar to hopefully go to Peru one day and try this. But anyway, so it was in my backyard, and like not actually in my backyard, but like it was at a retreat here in Missouri. And I was like, okay, great. I don't have to travel to go do this. Let's go try it. So we're in this like ceremony circle, and we're doing breath work and we're doing yoga and all this stuff. And they're like, okay, it's time to go do the DMT ceremony. And I was like, I want to go second. I just like raised my arm. I'm like, sorry, but I'm like really, really, really nervous, like more nervous than most. And this is like, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't want to be the first one to try it, but I want to go second. So that way I don't talk myself out of it. And I don't, and they're like, okay. And like people kind of laugh. There's like 30 people there. And it was like, okay, whatever. Like some people are chill, some people are nervous, but I was like the most nervous in the group. My husband's like, whatever. Like he went to it with me. And so I go do it. It was insane. I'll have to talk about it on a later thing. I mean, just crazy. But I was so glad that I did it. And just like trying new things is basically what I'm getting at. It's like the anxiety from trying something new. I don't even know that it's social anxiety, but maybe you're not showing up on social media because it's just something new. And new things are anxiety driven. Painting a tree for the first time, anxiety. Painting a tree the 10th time, no anxiety. It's everything in that category. I was listening to a podcaster, this recent one that I found. Her name is Allie, and she just has a really good vibe. She's very much herself. She's talking very just nonchalantly, and she like sometimes messes up in her podcast and doesn't care. And I'm like, oh, I love this. And then I kept listening to her stuff, and it got to about 3 years ago. And I listened to a couple of her intros and like podcasts, and I was like, who is this? Like, this is not the same person. And she talked about it a bit in a recent episode, and she was like, it was just practice, because back then she was showing up how she thought people would want it. And she was like, hi, my name is Allie. I'm so glad you joined me today. And this is what we're going to talk about. It's going to be great. And then nowadays she's like, yo, today I did this, and oh my gosh, this is great. And like, it was so much more real, like noticeably, to where at the point where I was like annoyed by her fakeness 3 years ago, you know? Not to say that you shouldn't record stuff now to be annoyingly fake, but I think the stepping stone to get to your realness and to show up authentically is that first stepping stone of just showing up. I have a friend who she was doing Instagram stories for a while, and finally I just messaged her and I was like, girl, you gotta smile. Like, whenever I see you in person, you're always smiling, or you're at least like not, I don't know, it's just weird, but the way she was showing up in her Instagram stories was like, hi guys, da, 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 okay, Thor, like, and I'm like, just relax, like, this is not you. And she was in her stepping stones to get there, and she was at least doing it. And so I was praising her for doing it, and I'm like, this is what I see. You're in real life so great, but on stories it was just weird. And so we got to get through the weirdness in order to do it, because ultimately people buy art and people hire you because of who you are, your work ethic, and what you can paint. But a lot of times, especially canvas art or like stuff like in people's homes, like it's not as much for, if I'm painting murals for businesses, it's a little bit more cut and dry, right? But business owners are humans too. And business owners follow along with other humans like us. And so if you are sharing your life, sharing your art anyway, you don't just share your kids and stuff like that, but sharing the process of creating, sharing your finishing murals, but also just like you're sharing yourself. You are your brand. And it's so easy to just share yourself as your brand rather than go through this whole thing of like, what should my brand be? What font should I use? What colors I like? It's like, just show up you, and your brand will be who you are. The stories behind your art and the things of why you create your canvas art, those are going to be the reasons why people buy. There's several people who buy from me that aren't exactly animal lovers, but they've bought so many of my animal canvases because they just like to follow me online. They are invested that I have a little farm and a child, and they ask about it sometimes, and they like to follow along with my brand, which is ultimately just me. So this is another reason I'm just like, just because you have social anxiety doesn't mean you can't sell a lot of art, do really big things, or do the things that you're scared to do. And I will tell you, from somebody who is really comfortable now doing stuff on video, it is such a weight lifted just knowing that I can do it. And whenever somebody wants to video me, like I was just out painting at this amusement park thing, and the social media person came out and was like, hey, I'm gonna video you painting, blah, 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 for our social media. Do you want me to tag you? And I was like, sure. And I could literally just do it. And I just turned and smiled. It was like no big deal at all. But I feel like if previous social anxiety Andrea, who didn't like to be on video and was really like small and didn't like to show her stuff, that would have been like oh my gosh, anxiety up, spiked. Did it look okay? Oh no, but it wouldn't have been as good. Like, oh no, don't tag me. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that would have been happening. But because I've just gotten used to it, I not only have a shit ton of followers online because people like to follow along with the artist and the brand, it also just like, there's less anxiety. So I feel like that's how I think of it. It's like, if I just face my fear, do the thing, practice, I'm going to have less anxiety later about it. And anything to reduce my anxiety about life in general and work, I don't mind doing the really hard thing up front if it means for a better future. I don't mind sending a ton of outreach emails right now and really doing it, as long as it means that later I'm going to have a much easier time. I don't want to constantly be in the battle, but I know that like with things like this, if you just battle it out for a little bit, a week, a month, a year, the following years, decades are going to be so much easier. So just because you have social anxiety, like the rest of us, does not, one, give you an excuse to not do it. Just because you don't love the way you look doesn't mean you can't try to fix it a little bit, make yourself a little bit whatever, and then show up anyway. Just because you have these excuses doesn't mean you should follow through with it. You know what I mean? Okay, that's it. I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but I think you get the point. All right? Okay. that's all I have for you. If you would like more videos like this of me talking you through the hard parts of starting an art business, because this is very much a starting thing. This is a thing that a lot of artists have to get over. And in order to make money, and that's what we all want to do, right? That's why we listen to podcasts, is to be inspired and make money and be able to go live the rest of our lives. And yeah, I could go on and just repeat myself on a lot of these things, but that's all I have for you. So thanks for listening to another episode of the Artist Academy podcast. If you want more videos like this, we have a membership for only $37 right now. The price will be going up soon. So it's only $37 right now a month, and cancel anytime. I have videos like this all the time, adding new ones all the time. We have backlogs of 6 years of videoing myself doing all the art business tasks and things like this, talking about ways to make your art and life better, because everybody wants to make money and all the things. Okay. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Artist Academy podcast. I so appreciate you tuning in every week, and I would also appreciate if you could do me a very small favor and possibly share this episode either on social media. You can tag me, or even just write me a note in my DMs saying what you liked about the podcast, what you want to see more of, anything. I love getting any and every feedback, especially in the form of a review, 5 stars only. That's all we accept on Apple or Spotify. And just any kind of positive feedback whatsoever. It really makes everything worth it. Me sitting down to create this absolutely free podcast full of art and business content. And I also wanted to throw this out there that if you are not where you want to be currently in your art business, if you're stuck at a boring job that just sucks the creativity out of you and you don't have time to paint, and you're wanting to go full time with some kind of way of painting or murals or something, anything other than where you're at, trust me, I know the feeling, and I know how much it can affect the rest of your life, and I know what's on the other side of it. There's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of tips and tricks in the middle, but that's why I created the Artist Academy membership. It's only $37 a month, and it takes artists from aspiring or beginner to full-time and up to 6 figures. I've helped more artists than I can count or think of at the moment quit their jobs and go full-time into painting, and I can help you too. It's such a crazy, confusing, tough time, especially in that first year. That's why I specialize in helping artists within that first year of business, because that's the hardest part, taking the first step, figuring out how to get those first couple clients, and then we work from there. I've helped multiple artists reach even the 6-figure mark, and I can help you too. If you're ready to make 2025 the year that you finally go full-time into the creative industry and make good money with your art, and I want to invite you into the Artist Academy membership to view my over 100 plus art and business tutorials. There's everything from how to paint large scale to how to make a marketing plan for this year. And every single month I update it with new content of what's working right now, what's working on social media, what are the things that I'm doing, specific things with templates, with email scripts, with all the things that you need, that you just go right over the headache of it all, and I just give it to you, and you make it your own, and you grow your own unique art business the way you want to. Inside the membership, I open up my business and show you what I'm pricing per job, how the job went, what I learned from it, how I got that customer, and how I'm repeating that over and over again to build a 6-figure plus consistent art business for the last 10 years. I think I've been doing this for about 10 years and teaching for almost 6 years. Crazy. So I've heard it all. I've heard all the excuses, all the hurdles, and I can help you through them. They say a mentor can see your future a lot more clearly than you can. That's why you hire one, because when you're going through the tough times and thinking that you can't do it, I'm here and I know you can, and I can help you get around that hurdle and reach to the next hurdle and then the next one, and then yeah. So $37 a month. Go to artistacademy.co to join. There are no minimums. Cancellation is super easy. Stay as long as you want. Gather as much as you want, and grow your business as much as you want this year. Go to artistacademy.co to join the membership.